speaking of disrespect, have you seen Nicki Minaj losing her fucking mind?
She's beefed with every female artist.
Now, I ain't gonna lie, her beef with Jay-Z is personal because there's money involved.
Yeah.
So
that's different.
And we haven't heard too many people talk out about it, but apparently, like, what Nicki's a legend is that Jay-Z owes her tens of millions of dollars simply because when she had that exclusive deal with Tidal. I don't know if you remember that when Jay-Z was coming out. It was like 2015 or some shit. Jay-Z was coming out with Madonna and Draft Punk and all the biggest artists, Beyonce, Kanye. Everybody was elbow to elbow, walking out, talking about we're fighting these streaming services. We're going to create our own platform. We're going to pay our artists more. Tidal flopped, respectfully. He sold Tidal, but he probably allegedly. All those artists were promised a stake in the company. I'm not too sure what the stake was. I think it was like a 3%.
But that's a lot.
That's a lot,
yeah.
Right? That's a lot, especially when you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, you know what I'm saying? 3% of $1 billion is what? I don't like 30 million or some shit like that. About 3%, I'm crashing out too.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like, I ain't mad at her crashing out on Hov. That's what their situation.
Yeah. That was a part of it as well. She also
Jay-Z ruin all these sports.
Oh my God. Well, she felt like Lil Wayne. She feels like Lil Wayne should have been the performer at the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
That is funny as hell. Read that one again. What he said.
She did a whole list. The whole list.
She said, "Dear #Jay-Z, you ruined hip hop, you ruined football, you ruined basketball, you ruined touring, you ruined Instagram, you ruined Twitter. The jig is up. All of this is alleged and for entertainment purposes only." And she also is saying, she's mentioning Desiree, who is one of Jay-Z's.
You might as well say Jay-Z's the head of Doge. Jay-Z invaded Gaza. You might as well just come on, add some more to that, Nicki. Don't stop there.
Yeah, she says. There's a lot here, man.
Jay-Z's the reason for processed foods. Okay, he's the reason that there's artificial dyes in the candy. What else?
The jig is up, yo.
I heard that though. I heard he was the reason for Essence Festival this weekend.
That was definitely Hov.
That was Hov.
How do you go from calling someone the blueprint to accusing them of owing you $200 million? That's the question hanging over the entire music industry right now. At one point, Nicki Minaj openly praised Jay-Z as a business genius. She studied his moves, she quoted his interviews, she called him one of her biggest inspirations. In her own words, he was the standard for how to build an empire in hip-hop. Now, she's publicly blasting him online, claiming massive unpaid money, questioning his integrity, hinting at industry manipulation, and according to circulating reports, there may even be legal warnings flying behind the scenes. So, what changed? Was it really just about a streaming deal? Was it the Super Bowl controversy? Or did years of tension quietly build up before finally exploding on Grammy night? Because this didn't start with a tweet. It didn't start with politics, and it definitely didn't start with conspiracy talk. It started with admiration. Back in the early 2000s, Nicki and Jay-Z weren't enemies. They were collaborators moving in the same elite circles, sharing stages, sharing platforms, sharing respect. She was rising fast, and he was already cemented as one of the most powerful figures in music. But here's the thing about mentorship energy in this industry. When loyalty meets money, when power meets pride, when business meets ego, friendships can flip fast. And what happened next turned one of hip-hop's most respected relationships into one of its messiest feuds. To understand how it all unraveled, we've got to go back to when Nicki was still studying the empire, before she decided to challenge it, before the tweets, before the accusations, before the $200 million number started flying around. There was respect. In 2010, Nicki Minaj delivered the verse that changed everything on Monster by Kanye West. The track also featured Jay-Z, and let's be honest, many fans felt Nicki stole the spotlight. That verse wasn't just a moment, it was a statement. She could stand next to rap royalty and dominate. Jay-Z didn't distance himself. If anything, they moved in the same elite spaces after that. She performed at the legendary Home and Home concerts with Eminem and Jay-Z at Yankee Stadium. That wasn't a random booking. That was major league positioning. In 2012, she showed up at events surrounded by Roc Nation's inner circle. Photos from award shows painted a picture of unity. At the time, there was no visible tension, and publicly, Nicki spoke highly of him. In interviews, she called Jay-Z the blueprint for business moves. She admired how he transitioned from rapper to mogul. She studied how he built Roc Nation, how he diversified investments, how he moved strategically instead of emotionally. She wanted longevity, and Jay represented that. That's what makes this Fallout hit different. When someone you once respected becomes someone you accuse of betrayal, it's not casual, it's personal. the disappointment runs deeper. But admiration doesn't erase memory. Because long before the title deal, long before Grammy night, there was something else that shaped how Nicki viewed the industry. And it started with rejection. Here's something most people forget. Before Nicki Minaj became a global superstar, she was getting turned down. Repeatedly. She's spoken openly about how major labels in New York passed on her. Crews she admired didn't sign her. Industry heavyweights who later praised her, they didn't offer her a deal when she was grinding on mixtapes. That rejection stuck. And this matters, because Jay-Z wasn't just any rapper. He was New York royalty. He was the gatekeepers of the city, Rock Nation, Def Jam history, the elite circle. When those doors didn't open for her early on, she noticed. Instead, she packed up and linked with Lil Wayne and Cash Money in New Orleans. That move changed her life. Wayne gave her the platform, Young Money gave her the push, and from there, she built her empire without New York cosigns. That kind of beginning shapes how you move later. When you feel like your hometown didn't bet on you, it creates a chip on your shoulder. Even after success, even after awards, even after you're standing shoulder to shoulder with the same people who once overlooked you. So, while the public saw collaboration and unity in the 2000s and 10s, there may have been something deeper under the surface. Pride, memory, unspoken tension, because admiration doesn't cancel history. If you once felt shut out of the inner circle and later find yourself negotiating business with that same circle, you're not walking in blind. And that's exactly where this story starts shifting from respect to suspicion. Because in 2015, Jay-Z launched something that promised artists power, and Nicki signed on. 2015 was supposed to be revolutionary. Jay-Z stood on stage beside some of the biggest names in music and announced a streaming platform that would change the game. That platform was Tidal. The pitch was simple. Artists would finally own a piece of the platform. No more tech companies taking the lion's share. This was supposed to be power back in musicians' hands. And right there in the front row was Nicki Minaj. Reports at the time suggested she received around a 3% equity stake. That number matters. 3% doesn't sound huge until you're talking about a company valued in the hundreds of millions. If a platform sells for $300 million, 3% equals roughly $9 million. If valuations ever touched $1 billion, that stake jumps to $30 million. So, when Tidal was later sold in 2021 to Square, the financial company led by Jack Dorsey, people assumed original partners would see serious payouts. But according to Nicki, that didn't happen. She later claimed she received a call saying there was no real profit to distribute. Then she alleged she was offered about $1 million to settle everything quietly. To her, that felt like hush money, not partnership. That's where the $100 to $200 million accusation narrative began forming in her public statements years later. Whether that figure reflects back-end calculations, interest, or frustration is debated. But in her mind, she was shorted. And when money mixes with loyalty, especially after years of admiration, things turn personal fast. What started as a bold business alliance suddenly looked, at least from her perspective, like betrayal. And if she believed she was played once, she wasn't about to stay silent again. If the Tidal deal planted doubt, the Super Bowl poured gasoline on it. In late 2024, the NFL announced that Kendrick Lamar would headline the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show. On paper, it made sense. And Kendrick had Grammy wins, critical acclaim, and one of the strongest catalogs of the decade. But there was one detail that changed the mood. The game was in New Orleans, and New Orleans belongs to Lil Wayne. Wayne isn't just a rapper there. He's a hometown icon, the man who gave Nicki her first real shot, the mentor who put her on when others didn't. So when the slot went to Kendrick instead, fans immediately questioned it. And who oversees the halftime show partnership with the NFL? Jay-Z through Rock Nation. Nicki didn't hold back. She suggested the decision wasn't purely artistic. She hinted at ego, old grudges, industry politics. She implied Wayne was denied a moment he earned because of long-standing tension involving Drake, Birdman, and even herself. Now, to be fair, the NFL has its own selection process, and Kendrick is one of the biggest names in rap. But perception matters. To Nicki, this wasn't just about a performance slot. It was loyalty. If she already felt burned financially, and now believed her mentor was being sidelined publicly, that compounds things. Business frustration turns emotional fast, and that's when the tone shifted from suspicion to confrontation. Because once you believe the system is working against you, every move starts looking intentional. And the Grammy stage was next. Everything had been building quietly. The money dispute, the Super Bowl tension, the old feelings about rejection. But nothing truly exploded until Grammy night. February 2026. The ceremony kicks off at the Crypto.com arena. The host throws a few playful jabs at artists who aren't in attendance, including Nicki Minaj. It's framed as comedy. The crowd laughs. Cameras pan across smiling faces. Then, one clip goes viral. A reaction shot of celebrities appearing to celebrate the fact that she wasn't there. Whether it was harmless or shady depends on who you ask. But online, perception became reality in seconds. Nicki wasn't inside the building, she was online. And that's when the posts started flooding. She called the show a ritual. She warned that powerful forces would be exposed. She went after individuals directly, including Jay-Z. The tone wasn't playful, it was intense, spiritual, confrontational. Then came the most controversial part. She reposted old photos tied to past rumors, implying misconduct from decades ago. Within minutes, fact-checkers and fans began dissecting timelines. Critics said the claims didn't line up with public records. Supporters argued she was pointing at something deeper. Either way, the internet caught fire. What should have been a night about awards turned into a global debate about power, influence, and credibility. Headlines shifted from winners to tweets. The ceremony kept going, but the spotlight moved to her feed. And here's what made it even louder. Jay-Z didn't respond. No tweet, no interview, no public denial, just silence. And sometimes silence speaks louder than any diss track ever could. But Grammy, the end of the spiral. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Just when people thought this was strictly music industry drama, the storyline swerved into politics. And that's where things got even more unpredictable. Years ago, Nicki Minaj had publicly criticized Donald Trump. She made jokes about him in performances. She spoke emotionally about immigrant struggles, even referencing her own childhood moving to the United States at a young age. Her tone back then was empathetic and critical of hardline policies. Fast forward to 2025 and 2026. Suddenly, she was appearing at conservative events, smiling at political gatherings, calling Trump her #1 inspiration. She even showed up at a White House function tied to a new initiative supporting creators. Cameras flashed, the internet froze. Fans were confused. Was this strategy? Was this rebellion? Or was it personal alignment? The backlash was immediate. Longtime supporters felt blindsided, especially members of the LGBTQ community who had historically been a strong part of her fan base. Social media numbers reportedly dipped. Emotional videos flooded timelines. It felt like a cultural split happening in real time. Then came another viral moment. After journalist Don Lemon was briefly arrested following a protest incident, Nicki posted mocking commentary online. Critics called it insensitive. Supporters called it bold. Either way, the divide deepened. Now, the narrative wasn't just about Jay-Z. It was about identity, power, public image. Because once politics enters the mix, the audience gets wider and harsher. And as her posts grew more intense, so did the questions about what was really driving this transformation. Was she exposing something or unraveling in public? After Grammy night and the political shift, the tone changed again. It wasn't just accusations anymore. It was warfare language. Nicki Minaj began suggesting that powerful forces were actively trying to silence her. She talked about shadow bans, suppressed engagement, manipulated charts. She hinted that industry executives were cooking the books. At one point, she even teased the possibility of a larger legal exposure, using language that made people think of federal-level investigations. Then came the rumor that sent shockwaves. Reports circulated online claiming Roc Nation had issued a massive cease and desist tied to her accusations against Jay-Z. Some outlets threw around numbers like $5 billion in potential damages if defamatory claims continued. No official filings surfaced publicly, but the rumor alone added fuel to the fire. Because here's the reality. When accusations reach a certain level, legal teams usually step in. And yet, Jay-Z remained silent. No interviews, no public clapback, no press conference. That silence split the audience again. Some believed it was strategy. Let the storm pass. Don't validate chaos with attention. Others believed it was calculated dominance. When you're at the top of the power structure, you don't have to respond. Meanwhile, Nicki doubled down. She posted cryptic messages, teased receipts, suggested that other artists were quietly reaching out to her in support. Hashtags trended, fans rallied, critics fact-checked. At this point, the story wasn't even just about money. It had evolved into a battle over narrative control. Who gets to define the truth? Who controls the spotlight? And who benefits when the public turns on one side? Because whether intentional or not, this feud became bigger than both of them. It became a test of power in the modern music industry. And then came the pushback. The louder Nicki Minaj got, the louder the critics responded. Fact-check accounts began dissecting her posts line by line. Old photos she shared were analyzed for dates and context. Timelines were compared, claims were questioned. Some of the most explosive accusations didn't hold up under scrutiny. That shifted the conversation fast. Instead of debating Jay-Z's business practices, people started debating Nicki's credibility. Then, the hypocrisy angle surfaced. Online critics pointed out uncomfortable truths about controversies within her own personal circle. They asked how someone could throw around serious allegations without airtight proof while ignoring legal issues connected to people close to her. That narrative spread quickly, and it hurt. Because credibility is everything when you're making heavy claims. At the same time, UX supporters doubled down. They argued she was being targeted for speaking out. That powerful people always try to discredit whistleblowers, that the backlash proved she hit a nerve. So now the public was divided into two clear camps. One side saw a woman exposing corruption, the other saw someone spiraling and damaging her own legacy. And here's where the stakes get real. Nicki isn't just another artist. She helped redefine female rap. Her punchlines, alter egos, and bold aesthetic influenced an entire generation. Her impact is cemented. But legacy is fragile. If the conversation shifts from talent to controversy long enough, it starts rewriting how history remembers you. Meanwhile, Jay-Z remained silent. No visible cracks in his empire, no public reaction, just business as usual. Which leaves one final question. In a battle between noise and silence, which strategy actually wins? At this point, the internet was loud. Hashtags, threads, breakdowns, reaction videos, millions of opinions flying in every direction. But in the middle of all that noise, one person wasn't saying a word. Jay-Z. No live stream, no interview, no cryptic tweet, just silence. And that silence became its own strategy. In the modern era, most celebrity feuds play out in real time. Screenshots, clapbacks, subtweets. But Jay-Z has never been known for moving emotionally in public. His career has been built on controlled responses, calculated moves, long games. So when Nicki Minaj escalated the accusations, from business disputes to industry control, many expected a direct rebuttal. It never came. Instead, business continued as usual. Roc Nation partnerships stayed intact. Corporate sponsors didn't publicly flinch. Beyoncé's tour rolled on. The machine kept moving. That sent a message without saying anything. Some interpreted it as confidence. If the claims were baseless, why dignify them with a response? Others saw it as power. When you operate at billionaire-level influence, you don't trade tweets, you let the storm burn out. But silence cuts both ways, because when someone refuses to answer, it leaves space for speculation. And speculation is fuel online. Meanwhile, Nicki kept speaking, posting, hinting at receipts, rallying her fan base. One side relied on noise, the other relied on stillness. And in celebrity warfare, perception often matters more than proof. Which raises the bigger question, is this feud really about money and loyalty, or is it about who controls the narrative of hip-hop itself? At some point, every feud stops being about the present and starts being about history. Because no matter how chaotic things get, Nicki Minaj is still one of the most influential female rappers of all time. That's not debate. That's fact. Multi-platinum albums, record-breaking chart runs, a decade plus of dominance. She helped open doors for an entire generation of women in hip-hop. Her punchline-heavy flow, copied. Her Barbie aesthetic, recreated. Her alter ego creativity, studied. Without Nicki, the lane looks different. But legacy isn't just about numbers. It's about how the story ends. Right now, the narrative feels split. Die-hard fans believe she's standing up to industry power. They see courage, rebellion, truth-telling. Meanwhile, critics argue that mixing business disputes with extreme allegations blurred the line between exposure and exaggeration. And here's the reality. In the streaming era, attention moves fast. One headline can overshadow 10 years of accolades. One controversy can reshape how younger audiences view your career. Meanwhile, Jay-Z remains positioned as the untouchable mogul. Billionaire status, corporate alliances, cultural influence across sports, tech, and music. His empire isn't visibly shaking, so the stakes are uneven. Nicki is fighting publicly, Jay-Z is protecting quietly, and the longer this saga drags on, the more it becomes a question of endurance. Can she reframe the narrative before it hardens? Or will this chapter redefine her more than the music ever did? Because in hip-hop, reputations aren't just built in the booth. They're built in how you handle the storm. Here's where things get complicated. Behind the scenes, whispers started circulating that Nicki Minaj may be planning a reset. Industry insiders hinted at quiet meetings with PR strategists. There's talk of a possible documentary. Some fans believe she's preparing to release her side of the story in a controlled format instead of chaotic social posts. If that happens, it could flip the narrative again, because one thing about Nicki, she knows how to create moments. But timing matters. Right now, she's standing at a crossroads. On one side, there's the loyal Barb fanbase that rides for her no matter what. They believe she's exposing uncomfortable truths about power in the industry. On the other side, the general public is watching carefully, but questioning credibility and waiting to see if hard proof ever surfaces. Meanwhile, Jay-Z continues to move without public reaction. His silence has become its own shield. No explosive counters, no public sparring, just business as usual. That contrast makes the feud feel even more uneven. So what is this really? Is it a business dispute that spiraled into something personal? Is it an artist fighting a system she believes cheated her? Or is it a case of pride and power colliding at the highest level? One thing is certain, this story is far from over. Because whether you love her or question her, Nicki Minaj has never exited quietly. If she returns with receipts, music, or a full tell-all, the internet will erupt again. And if she doesn't, then this chapter becomes part of hip-hop history. Messy, loud, and unforgettable.